Good afternoon. Welcome to Smart Trucking Live. Glad you could join us here. Part-Time Trucking is here. Hi from Vancouver. Jordan Hansen is here down in South Dakota. Scranton Shaker. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Scranton Shaker. Daniel Meredith is here. Good afternoon, sir. James Crosby is here checking in from Southwest PA. Hope everyone's doing good today. Didn't have a whole lot new going on in the trucking industry, so I just thought we'd work on some driving tips, road trips that we've picked up over the years. You know, you learn little tricks and secrets over the years as you drive, and you accumulate those. You like to pass them on to other people. Probably one of the most noticeable ones, or notable ones, I should say, that I learned is that you should never assume that the road is dry. And I've come around corners in mountain curves and stuff like that, and been on dry pavement. And the next curve you go around, all of a sudden it's glare ice, for instance, just because the snow's melted, run across the road, frozen in the shadow of the mountain, and all of a sudden you've got ice there. Stuff like that. There's all sorts of little tricks that you learn after a while. Fred Besmer's here. Battler Solutions, South Carolina. Garrett Burns from South Dakota. Darian Washington. How are you guys all doing? Matthew Thomas. We are doing well. Thank you, Matthew. Hope you are too. Matthew Pesco. What's going on, everybody? Finally get to join in again. Roger Penske. Roger, how are you? James Crosby's here. Yeah, we're good. We're rolling here. We're rolling. So we're just talking about little driving tips that you learn over the years, that you pick up, that you like to pass on. The Machine is here from Lathrop, California, which is a place I haven't been to in a while. We're just doing the laptop switch here. I'm having trouble with mine, so I have to pass it over to Kathy, who knows what she's doing. So where are we here? Another tip I learned was that you never start from the top of the mountain too quickly when you're heading down the hill. Even if you think you can see the whole hill, you can't often see the whole hill all the time. And I learned that on the Selmo Creston Mountain. I've been running BC for a number of years, but I'd never been over the Selmo Creston. And I looked down the hill from the top. I thought, it doesn't look that bad. And I left in too high a gear, and I had a pretty good smoke about halfway down. So you never assume anything. I guess that's a safe rule in trucking. Never assume anything. What are some of the little things that you guys have picked up? Adam Smith, hello from the dreaded East Coast. Adam, I don't envy you there. Scranton Shaker says, these damn computers. I had to relearn to drive, just bought a cab over. Always drove W9s and extended hood. Scranton Shaker. Cab over. That's very cool. What kind did you get? It is like you feel like you're in a different seating position, and your road position and everything is different in a cab over. Well, that is cool. Jeff Rees, here's one. Clean windows and mirrors reduce eye fatigue. Good tip, Jeff. Good tip, and that's true. That is true, and I hadn't thought of that when I was trying to cycle through my memory, but that is a good tip. Kadeem Jeffrey says, student in training. Hey, man, welcome. Glad you could join us. We'll do as best we can for you. Greetings from Carthage, Missouri. St. Catharines, Ontario. Canadian guy. Something else that I learned. I learned a lot of stuff in the mountains, because a lot of my earlier years were running in the mountains, and I also learned in the mountains that if you're on a steep grade and it's snow covered, you want to put your passenger side drives on the gravel shoulder, and your driver's side drives in the snow rather than on a track that someone has smoothed out on the way up, and you'll just get better traction that way. Might as well use the gravel shoulder whenever you can. Battler Solutions, lots of young steering wheel holders looking at their phones. A tip from the big tuna at the Korean Mafia, no sandals in the yard. Yeah, we shouldn't even have to put that up, but Roger's right. You don't come to work in sandals. You don't drive a truck in sandals. You wouldn't go to a construction site in sandals. So why would you get into a commercial vehicle in sandals? Excellent tip. Daniel says, I just enjoy hooking a set of doubles together. I would like to hook up a set of triples one day, but in Maryland, they don't have that. Well, you can always just cruise around the yard with it, Daniel, just to check it out and try it. They allow them on the New York Thruway. If they ever let you go up there, tell them you want to run triples up there. But we always call those wiggle wagons. I pulled B trains, and I like those just fine. But the A train spindle hitch thing, never cared for that. Captain, nice guy. Here's a driving etiquette tip: don't wash your truck in the fuel island. Yeah, God, you see guys doing that, and they're just, why? Yeah, are they just too cheap to go to the Blue Beacon? It's not meant for that. You're holding up other people. You're gunking up the fluid for washing the windshield with the dirt off your doors and stuff like that. That's crazy when you see people doing that. But it's a whole new breed out there, I tell you what. I had a level 1 inspection yesterday, Winter Haven, California, and passed and got that CVSA sticker on my front windshield. Thunderstorm 87. That's a good job, man. It's not easy to pass a level 1 in California. You're doing everything right. There's a feather in your cap. Good job, man. Good job. That's a serious plus. Greetings from Stockton, California. Sean's Classic Trucks. We were at home in the former Connell Motor Truck Company, first Peterbilt dealer. God, I remember them. I remember that dealership. That's a historic and cool spot to be. Alan Johnson, pay attention to your surroundings, because apparently apparently a truck hit the back of a paint truck on 74 near the Galesburg, Illinois area. Wow, as far as I'm aware, everyone's okay. Man, that's a good tip. You should always be paying attention. You don't know what's coming at you next. I remember one time I was tired. It was snowing out. The weather was bad. I rolled into the first rest area in Utah going west on 80. It's before you get to the hill. And there was a drunk guy lying in the ramp on the lane. And I was tired, and you're usually starting to lose focus. And I spotted this. I didn't know what it was, but it turned out to be a drunk. And man, thank God I saw him, and he never moved. I stopped right up in front of him. He never moved. He was so far gone. So I was pretty glad I was paying attention that day. To be fair, though, in the winter I do use the squeegee to keep my headlights clear. Captain Nice Guy, and that's perfectly allowed. Captain Nice Guy, keeping your lights cleared is an important part of doing it right. No driving nude except on Fridays. That's from I drive tank for CAWD. Yeah, no. I don't even think you should do that Fridays, probably, but that's certainly a valid tip. Matthew Thomas, looking further down the road with both hands on the wheel helps keep the truck tracking straight down the road, and that is an actual true tip. The farther down the road you look, the better driver you'll be, and you'll know. You'll have an idea of how to prep for something that you can see a long way off. Whether if you're just peering over the front of the hood 6 feet, you're not collecting nearly all the information that you could be if you were looking farther ahead. And I always did that out of practice more than anything else, but it was a really good tip to look far ahead, far as you can see. Driving a truck is all about finesse, Jeff Rees, and that's true too. Good drivers, don't snap the wheel, jerk the wheel. You ease the transmission, ease the stick, ease the wheel. It is about finesse. That's true. Daniel Meredith says, don't put DEF in your fuel tank. Yeah, that's certainly a good tip. Matthew Pesco says, never trust a GPS. GPS stands for gets people stuck. I remember the first GPS I had put me into a schoolyard in some little town in Iowa when I was looking for the factory. So yeah, you can't rely completely on a GPS. There's all sorts of guys got hung up in Jersey following GPSs that put them under low bridges. Container Guru, sorry I'm late. Not to worry, man. We're just getting rolling here. Glad you could join us. But yeah, GPS is a tool, but it's not the only tool. You shouldn't rely completely ever on just a GPS or a map or anything. I used to like to phone the shipper, look at the map, look at the GPS, and compare all three. If I had a question, I'd call them back at the factory. Trucker Hershey's here. Hello, Trucker Hershey. Glad you could make it, sir. Adam Bennett's in North Carolina, headed to Maryland. Well, you're kind of heading into the traffic there, so I wish you luck with that. Thunderstorm 87, turn off the AC on any steep inclines. Good tip. Good tip. I don't know if the trucks now are more efficient that way than they used to be, but it used to be if we were coming into like leaving Vegas headed for LA and climbing the hills to get up into California. We always used to have to shut our air conditioning off, drop our windows to stay cool, and just kind of feather the pedal all the way up because it was really easy to overheat down there, especially in the summertime. Jordan Hansen says, seen people go in the ditch because they were in a hurry during a blizzard. And you see that every winter. Everybody's in such a big rush. And you wonder what for. You wonder what for, and it rarely works for them. And all they do is bugger up people behind them, too. It's not bad enough they go into the ditch, but they bugger up traffic behind them.
Adam Bennett with the donation of $50 whole. Unbelievable start to the stream today. Thank you very much for that, Adam. And he would like to say thank you, and I would like to say no, thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Appreciate it. Really do. Roger Penske says, California 60 under a total reconstruction right now, westbound. Westbound is 2 lanes, one concrete and the other concrete left and future shoulder on the right. Sign says trucks lady lane? I prefer both steers on cement. Lady lane? I got to think about that one. But hey, did you guys hear down in Rogers area? Actually, Arizona is where it was. These two guys washing out a chemical tanker, and they both died in there. There was a bad chemical in the tanker, and they both died right in the tanker at the wash bay. So they're investigating that. That was in Avondale, I think. Avondale, Arizona. God, awful thing there.
Adam, if you have any questions you want to toss in chat for us, by the way, feel free to do so. We'll be sure to acknowledge them.
Container Guru says you only live once, drive a Peterbilt naked. I can honestly say I've never done that. All the Peterbilts I've owned, I've never done that in any of them. Matthew Thomas says, when driving in snow or heavy rain, if you wear darker lens glasses, you can see better. And sometimes that's true. I sometimes put on my sunglasses in a snowstorm, for instance, just because it kind of helps out with the glare of the snow and the sunshine coming right at the windshield. So, yeah, good tip, Matthew. Thank you. Oscar Franco, steering tips on the highway. I can float gears and downshift since I was 16, but I tend to swerve on curves and can't keep the truck straight. And I've lost that. Roger Penske says left lane. Oh, left lane. That's okay. I knew there had to be a better explanation. Okay, that makes sense to me. Thanks, Roger. I got that now. You'd think I could pick that up, but I'm getting old. Roger says soon to be 4 concrete lanes in both directions. I saw an article here just recently that they're talking about taking concrete away because it's not porous enough, and in flood conditions, the water can't get through concrete the way it can get through asphalt, and it's creating trouble. So lots of states are now contemplating getting rid of concrete, even though in some cases, like where it frost heaves, it's far more effective. So we'll have to see how that works out. Matthew Pesco, I remember when the Grapevine had such deep ruts I could take my hand off the wheel and the truck would steer itself. Be conscious of ruts when changing lanes. Yeah, good tip there from Matthew, because that really can throw you too, especially if the ruts are deep and you get those really hot climates and they use asphalt and you're literally in a track. with the ruts. Kadeem says, what's the best carriers for a new driver in Ontario? Just asking because I don't want to be screwed, which is a fair question. If I was in Ontario, and I think I don't know if Gary Mercer takes new drivers or not, but Kadeem, I'd talk to Gary Mercer and see what they have to say. I'd start there. Yeah, maybe they do. Yeah, I'd start with Gary Mercer up in Mississauga. They're the best carrier in Ontario that I'm aware of. What's that?
What other driving tips you got, Dave?
Something else I used to do, and I think it's a lot easier now with the phone apps and stuff. No, not that I'd be checking my phone apps while I was driving, but I would always grab a copy of USA Today and check the weather forecast for the region that I was going to be trucking into. Mind you, I did like long haul. So I would look at the weather patterns across the U.S., and oftentimes I would choose my route to the coast depending on what the weather conditions were doing. Like if they were calling for bad weather in Wyoming, for instance, I'd drop down south and run 40 in. But I always kept an eye on the weather, and I think that's good practice. That chemical those poor tank wash guys inhaled was sodium hydrosulfide. So I don't know if it was a product in the tanker or whether it was just a combination of water and something else that had been in the tanker formed that, but that's tragic. I'm always surprised there aren't more accidents in truck washes like that, because some of those chemicals that they haul in those tankers are nasty, nasty, nasty stuff. If there's a bad odor in your vents, spraying Lysol into the inside cab intake will usually do the trick. There's a good tip, and you can change those the air filters in the cab intake too, and that'll help. But yes, I've done that too. And if you set it on recirculate and spray it, it'll suck it right into the air intake and then pump it out through the heater vents. So good tip from Jeff Rees there. Matthew Thomas, when driving in snow or heavy rain, if you wear a darker lens glasses. I already read that one. Yes, I did. But yes, it's still true. Still true. Yellow shooter glasses help at night by cutting down glare, especially in the rain. I tried those. I didn't find that they particularly helped for me, but some guys swear by those glasses. And they used to call them driving glasses, but I've heard them called shooter's glasses as well. And some guys wouldn't be without those at night. Like I say, I didn't find they worked for me particularly, but my eyesight was really good, so I could see really well at night, but it's not so much anymore. Hey, anyone know how to keep the bugs off a windshield? Well, believe it or not, those bug screens actually do work. I can tell you that. Other than that, like I would imagine that these new drop nose trucks take a lot of bugs in the windshield. And I never found, there used to be a product called Bug Be Gone that would just clean them right off, but I haven't seen that around for a while. Used to buy it at Bosselman's, but yeah, I haven't really found anything other than that worked. Justin Brady says they should make a CB a standard in all trucks. I agree with that. And I think the trucking industry has kind of gotten away from using those. The newer guys don't use the CB so much. Man, that was a real boon for us. We could find out, what the weather was doing, where we were headed. We could find out if there was a wreck up ahead or where the bears were. God, they were a handy tool. You could get directions back then. You could get directions off them into a town if you didn't know where you were going. And they were a handy deal. David, drive 10 miles an hour. That's Roger Penske saying that. Keep the bugs off. Yeah, that would probably work too. Yeah, your dispatch would probably be annoyed with you at the end of the day. You'd get great fuel mileage, and you wouldn't have any bugs on the windshield. So Good tip, Roger. I never thought of that. Oh, man. Mirror makes bug remover that works good. That's from Sean's Classic Truck. Mirror is the name of the company. Mirror makes a bug remover that works real good. I'll have to see if I can find some of that stuff. And Jeremy Morgan says wax, but you wouldn't wax your windshield, would you, Jeremy? That would just smear when you use your wipers, I would think. Yeah, maybe it's a certain kind of wax. I tried Rain-X for a while, and I liked Rain-X as long as I didn't have to use the wipers. But the moment you did have to use the wipers, then it smeared and you had to do it all over again. Thunderstorm 87 says, I hear kitty litter can give you traction if you're stuck in ice. Yes, kitty litter does work. And lots of guys carry a bag of that for just a certain situation that they might get into. But yeah, or I used to carry like a salt sand combination you could buy at the hardware stores and stuff. That works really well. Even sand. But I always liked it with a little bit mix of salt, and then it would melt away a little bit of the ice and then stick. So, but yeah, kitty litter works great. Tim O says, hello, Smart Trucking. Hello, sir. Glad you could join us, Tim. Appreciate it. What else do we know here? Something else that I learned was that you always want to leave a whole lot more stopping distance in front of you than you think you'll ever need, because it's amazing some of the stupid moves four-wheelers can pull. So I learned to expect the worst from four-wheelers, and that way they never surprised me. I agree with the CB stuff. I also keep a scanner in my truck too. Matthew Thomas. I always had a scanner, and Michigan took mine away, and mine was a weather scanner. But scanners in Michigan back in the day were illegal. But yeah, I always thought a scanner was a good thing to have. Michigan didn't agree with me, but perhaps they've updated their laws on that since. But yeah, leave a ton of stopping room in front of you. And I know in traffic, it's virtually impossible. So all you can really do is just move more slowly than the rest of the traffic volume is moving, and you'll get cut off 100 times, but at least you won't be running into stuff. Or at least hopefully you won't be running into stuff. Sometimes they get into 45 in front of you, and they've cut you too close, and you can't help but clip them, but that's their fault. That's not yours. And if they're on a 45 in front of you when the cop comes, he knows whose fault that was. Tim O says it's a very true statement on distance. Yeah, it is. And even at highway speed, like I see these guys, and that's why I'm not a big supporter of platooning. I think that's the stupidest idea I've heard of. But even on the highways at highway speed, like fall back. Like what's the rush? Leave yourself a ton of room. Because I've seen guys, they hit a patch of ice, the trailer goes sideways, and they're gone. That way, A, there's ice there. And B, you can slow down, track straight through, and wave to them as you go by. But yeah, leave a ton of distance whenever you can. Part-time trucking. I'm not sure why, but in Western Canada, they usually use VHF radio instead of a CB. Better range and less cluttered signal. We got away from CBs and used, basically ham radios was what we ended up with. But yeah, better range, clearer signal. Trucker Harold, hello everyone. Dave, what do you think about the trucker strike in Australia? I think it's damn interesting. And they've got the strike that I was interested in. They did a COVID strike, which I didn't really care about one way or the other. But Toll, the company, Toll in Australia, TOLL, controls a large majority of the freight that moves in Australia. Those guys are all unionized. And they went on strike to protest drivers coming in to Australia that were not unionized, basically. And they were talking about the Amazon drivers. Amazon is just getting into Australia. They're introducing their own equipment. And the Amazon guys are running for way less than what the Toll drivers are have been working for. And Toll's going, hey, we don't even want the Toll drivers. Going, hey, we don't want to see this in Australia. And I agree with them. It's going to be a tough battle because, Amazon is huge, but I agree because we got into that slippery slope here in North America, and that's part of why the rates are so cheap anymore. Timo, make sure you have an escape route. I'm a retired truck driver after 35 plus years. That's excellent advice too. And you always want to give yourself, keep an eye on where you can go if something goes sour in front of you, whether you're smarter to move left or move right if you can't get stopped. But yeah, that's excellent advice. Always plot a safety escape route. Quality training and always do your pre-trips. That's from David. And yeah, excellent advice there too. I've been really concerned with the level of training here for the truck drivers in the last 10 or so years. It's been pathetic. And the ATA fought against having a mandate for a limited number of hours behind the steering wheel when it came to training. I thought there should have been a minimum amount of hours that a guy needed behind the wheel, driving the truck, just not in the classroom, driving the truck actually. And the ATA said no, that wasn't necessary, and they struck it out because it was costing them too much money. I thought that was a huge mistake. I still think it's a huge mistake. And I see here, I was reading this just before we came on air. The FMCSA has granted $76 million to various states to help them prevent truck crashes. And the biggest key to preventing truck crashes is better training for their drivers. So I think that's a no-brainer. I don't know why they can't see that, but. And Matthew Pesca says, yeah, the four-wheelers. It's those guys, the four-wheelers have been proven to trigger roughly 90% of the accidents involving trucks. My Cascadia autopilot retreats to 3.6 seconds behind the vehicle in front of me. Max selectable distance. Roger, do you find that 3.6 seconds is enough? I would want... I see the max selectable distance. I would want even more. I guess you don't have to pay attention to the thing, but I think that's almost not enough. Adam Smith, don't panic when you miss a turn and end up making a turnaround decision, especially when you're new. Yeah, that's Adam Smith's right about that. Just instead of panicking and carving at the last minute, carry on, go to the next exit, do a loop around and come back. Don't make sudden moves in a tractor trailer. That never works out good.
Captain Nice Guy, my man, coming in with the $50 as well. Thank you very much for that. It's all in the name. Remember that the recommended route isn't always the quickest. Good trip planning will give you knowledge to wrecks, construction, road closures, detour, etc. that you'll need. Don't rely on your GPS, but use technology to your advantage. Thank you very much for the 50 beans, Captain Nice Guy.
Yeah, and that's solid advice too, that the recommended route. And that's, I hate to get off on this rant, but that's why hub miles are better than PC miler miles, because if they set the PC miler to shortest distance, shortest miles. There's on a PC miler program, you can set shortest miles or practical miles, but I still think hub miles are even better, because then you can take the safest route by your choice and still get paid for every mile that you do. Trucker Harold, I see a lot of trucks turned on their sides due to speeding and around curves. Yeah, and that happens. And part of the problem with these docks that don't let you on the docks, you can't see how the load's loaded. And sometimes you get a real treat when you get into the first curve at highway speed and you can feel how top heavy they've loaded, and all of a sudden the thing's leaning way over. I knew a couple guys that rolled because of that, but the way they put the load on the trailer sometimes, depending on what the product is, makes a huge difference. So you've got to literally attack all the corners slower than you think you would need to, and then if it feels all right, and you can feel it in the seat of your pants whether it's leaning or not, and then you can accelerate around. But sometimes the load's top heavy, and there's nothing worse than that kind of a feeling than feeling the wheels on one side of the truck starting to come off the ground. Man, that just knots your stomach. So yeah, Yeah, good advice there is not to be speeding around curves. Tim O says, agreed, Dave. They need to train the new drivers on how to drive a manual transmission, too. Tim, I always thought so, just because I thought that the standard, the manual transmissions, gave you a better feel for the equipment, if nothing else. And then anybody could drive the automatic, but then you had the skill to move around from truck to truck if you needed to. But that's my opinion. Automatics are gaining in popularity in leaps and bounds every day. I'm seeing less Swift trucks than I did 5 years ago. Thunderstorm 87. That's an interesting observation. Now, they kind of merged with Knight, so maybe the ones that were labeled Swift are now labeled Knight, but they're huge. But maybe they're phasing out that logo because that logo has a bad reputation. Let's just say that. Swift trucks, you don't know how many have been in the ditch over the years, so maybe they're phasing out the Swift logo. Daniel Meredith says we all had to start somewhere, and that's true and that's right. And all you can do if you're starting, and not just when you're starting, but always just be as careful as you possibly can, because you don't know what the road can throw at you. So everybody does start somewhere. You just gotta treat the road and the truck with respect and take it easy. Matthew Pesco says that's why he likes flatbed. You can always see the load. That's true. I hadn't thought of that. That's a good advantage. And you can basically dictate where the weight goes too to most of those guys loading you. They'll set the coil or whatever it is where you want it set on the truck. That way your axles are good too if you know the equipment. CDL school should be at least 80 hours before they graduate. That's from Trucker Herald. The more the better. I support like an apprenticeship program almost for truck drivers. Like pay them well, pay them fairly while they're learning, and have like an apprenticeship for same as a plumber or an electrician, because it's a skilled trade, truck driving. So I think the more training the better, always. Tim, my son has been driving for the last 3 years, and he's doing well and is always asking for advice. The only way to learn and be safe. Tim O, yeah, it's good that he asks. It's good, because sometimes the guys that don't are the ones that end up in trouble. And you should never assume you know it all. And there's all sorts of guys that get into like their 7th year of trucking, 7 to 10 years, and they think they've got the whole thing mastered, and they don't. It's a skill set that takes a lot longer than 10 years to master. Grilled Mortal, southbound at Moon River on the 400. Hey, man, glad you could join us. Are you trucking while you're typing? Anyway, good man. SoCal, hey, SoCal's here. Glad you could join us, sir. Michael Reese says, I'm wanting to get back into trucking after being out of it for 20 years. I'm now 40. Should I go to trucking school? How long were you in trucking before you left, Michael? Like, how many years experience do you have? I would think that you probably wouldn't need to go back to trucking school, would be my guess. And frankly, I don't find them worth the money anymore. There's a few really good ones. You might want to hook up with a carrier that has like a quick refresh program or something like that, but I doubt you'd need to go to trucking school. That's my opinion. Old timer. I always carried a U-size aluminum ball bat as a tire thumper. Once you learn the different ping sounds, he could tell the tire pressure within 10 pounds. Good tip. And it's all in the sound. And that varies too depending on the temperature. Because on a hot day, you'll get a different thump than you will, or a different ping than you will on a really cold day. Yeah, Matthew Pesco says, Michael, you can do a refresher course if you want to, if you need to. And there's certainly no harm in that, but I wouldn't go through the whole trucking school thing again, because everybody knows what to do at a stop sign, and basically that's all those guys are teaching.
Daniel Meredith, thank you very much for the $2. The shield icon on the Swift logo means Knight/Swift.
I didn't know that, Daniel. Thank you. Appreciate the tip. Huh. Well, that makes sense. Swift was, in my opinion, Swift was poorly run in the last few years before and it was the same guy, but at least he was smart enough to merge or sell out or whatever he did with the Knight brothers, because the Knight guys are smart operators, smart businessmen, and they actually had worked for Swift at one point, I believe. But yeah, I think that's a better carrier now than it was before they went with the merger. That's my opinion, anyways. Donald Zanger says, my school was 180 hours plus, with time with the trainer was 350 hours. That sounds like a more thorough school to me. That sounds more like it should be in the ballpark there. Justin Brady says, what do you think about heated wiper blades? I've never tried them. I know Mark at Trucking Answers highly recommends them. Obviously, he's tried them, but I've never tried them myself, and I never up here. We learn not to blow heat onto the windshield, because in the really bad weather, it'll just make the snow stick or the ice stick or whatever. So we always keep our windshields cool and ventilated up here rather than having the electric wipers. And that works up here in Canada. But, there are times when I've had to pull over in freezing rain, for instance, just, before I can find a safe place to land. And I wish I'd had heated wipers in a situation like that. Jeff Reeves, here's one. When backing into a tight dock, put something on the ground as a marker guide for your tandems. Jeff Reeves, that is a good tip. And particularly if you're blindsiding in, just to have like a little stone as a reference or something like that, so you can check it. It's more visible, easily visible. And, you should still be getting out to look no matter what. Mo Preet, there he is. Sure wish I finished training... That's what. Sure wish I finished training. That's what SWIFT stands for. Oh, those SWIFT guys. No wonder you're seeing SWIFT on the trailers less and less. Grilled Mortal. I had a trailer tire explode while I was parked. Woke me up. I bet it woke you up. They go off with a hell of a noise too. It's weird that it went. It must have been warming up to it before you parked, I guess, But yeah, I guess it woke you up. Better than blowing it on the highway and scaring the hell out of the four-wheeler beside you. Alonzo Turner. What's the difference between a Swift driver and a toilet? And I don't know the answer, and I'm afraid to ask, Alonzo. A toilet can back up, he says. Oh. I can't carry on. That's one of the best jokes I've ever heard. I love that. Thanks, Alonzo. I love it. Thank you. Oh, God. SoCal Sandman says, sure, we're insured for that. I don't know what we're insured. For Swift. Thank God I've got help here to interpret this stuff for me. So I didn't get that one at first. Stop whining, I'll find third. Sean's Classic Trucks. We're off on a Swift tangent roll here now. See what I flipped today, Captain Nice Guy. Oh, God. It amazes me that they're obviously, they must be self-insured, because nobody else would give them insurance probably after a certain point. But Matthew Pesco says, when maneuvering in a dark area with tight spaces, you can use glow sticks to mark objects. You can buy them at a dollar store. Now, I've never heard of that. I've never seen that done, but that's an excellent idea. That's very good. Thank you, Matthew. That's a great tip. Appreciate it. Tim O. It's 5 years of being green, and then as a driver, you start to really learn and comprehend what trucking is all about and become one with the equipment that you're running. I would agree. And then I've noticed, Tim, that in the 7 to 10 year period, guys get overconfident, think they know it all, and a lot of them have accidents at that point, like in the 7 to 10 year stretch, because they're overconfident. But yeah, No, it does takes years to get the hang of the equipment, in my opinion.
Stevie Wonder Institute for Trucking. That's pretty good. Daniel Meredith coming in with the 5 beans. Thank you very much for that. Get a yellow chalk to mark your tandems. A very good tip.
Oh, God.
Thank you very much for the 5, Daniel.
Oh, thanks, Daniel. Oh, God. That's an excellent one. I'm going to use that. SoCal, I got to borrow your material. I love that. I'm crying into my glasses now here. God almighty. Yeah, we saw that one. See what I F up today. If you're a competent Swift driver, there's got to be days when you just want to find a new carrier because you get tired of people making fun of you. Roger Penske, the Ted Kennedy School of Driving. Oh man, that's cruel. And Roger, of course, is referring to the unfortunate automobile accident that Ted Kennedy had at Chappaquiddick many, many years ago that caused the death of a girlfriend in the car. Oh, yeah, Ted shouldn't be giving drinking or driving advice to anybody. He's gone now. I shouldn't be talking ill about the dead, but he wasn't much of a driver. Jesus. You guys got to quit throwing me this stuff. It is becoming a comedy hour out here now. Captain Nice Guy, CRST, crash and roll stunt team. There's another group that I used to be afraid of just as much as Swift guys were the CRST guys. I don't know if they've improved over there, but some of those guys were bloody awful. And when you consider that CRST is kind of in the middle of Iowa, you'd think mostly the trucks would be staffed by farm boys, that were familiar with equipment, but not at CRST. I don't think they paid enough to attract the good drivers, but man, there were some scary CRST drivers back in my day.
Terry Morrow, thank you very much for the $5 donation, my friend. Hope you're enjoying the stream today.
Here's Donald Angry. C. Werner, I'm finally trucking. Well, somebody better call down to Phoenix to see if Swift's closing its doors at this point, just out of sheer embarrassment. Matthew Pesco. Personally, before I retire, I want to drive for Swift just so I can mess with people. Wear a bag over your head and cut holes in the bag so you can be the unknown truck driver. And that way your reputation won't. SoCal, the Chappaquiddick challenge. Jump the bridge. Oh, jeez. And he got off with that. It's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. It shows you what money can buy, though. Trucker Harold says that he'd rather drive for Swift than Werner. Now, that's an interesting comment, and I'd like to ask why that is. That's interesting. Werner is an extremely well-run company, profitable these days as far as money is concerned. I don't know how their drivers are doing. All I've ever done as a Class A driver was haul logs locally for my father for 20 years ago now, and I wish I'd got into trucking professionally. How should I do this? Michael, if you've been hauling logs for 20 years ago, you don't need any refresher from anybody, man, because hauling logs is tough work, and it's driving skill because you guys are on some ungodly little gravel roads. So if you want to get into trucking professionally now, man, I just go in there with your credentials and say, this is what I did. And I did this for 20 years. And you can honestly tell them that you can drive anything in the damn yard, which is true. Because if you've been hauling logs, you got a ton of experience. So you just march in there and they'll be begging you to join them. SoCal says it's amazing what you can get away with. Just ask OJ. another good case in point. He's out now too, which just amazes me. But Everyone's mileage varies literally in this business, but honestly, CRS3 treated me very, very well. Oh, good to know. I quit for personal reasons, not professional ones. I had a great co-driver and a fantastic dispatcher. Well, it's something good about CRST, and I'm glad to hear it because I don't often hear anything good about that. So good to know. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Captain Nice Guy, but they are a privately held company too, are they not? They're not. I don't think they're traded on the stock market. I think they're privately held. And you don't see that a whole lot with great, big, huge trucking companies. Trucker Herald, Werner has a lot of accidents with totals this year. Lots of drivers leaving the company. God, Werner's had probably some of the biggest lawsuits on record. And, God, the one, it wasn't even really their fault. But Swift and Night Yards are still separate active yards. The Swift Aviation Hangar is still Swift at Sky Harbor in Phoenix. So, Roger, it sounds like they're almost trying to keep those two entities separate even after all this time. That's interesting too. Well, those guys will have a reason for that. I'd love to know what it was. Grilled Mortal, I want to go out and look for low bridge on a boat. Perhaps a culvert on the Seguin River. Yeah. Take a canoe so you can duck down, or a kayak, something low. Daniel Ford, I disagree. Hauling logs doesn't mean you can drive on cement. Daniel Ford, I found that if you could run some of those little gravel roads, I did that briefly. I did it with dressed lumber, but some of those roads are a lot trickier. But yeah, it's a different skill set than pavement. But I mean, if you're going to haul logs, you've got to have a feel for the equipment and for the weight shift, like the top heavy weights and stuff like that. So, in my opinion, if you can haul logs and do it successfully for 20 years, you're a well-experienced driver. The pavement feel may be a little different, and cement covered with snow or something like that may be different. But anybody that's done that for 20 years will catch on to it quick, in my opinion. Daniel Meredith, I am a YRC yard driver, but in the process of changing the name to Yellow, instead of spending $30 million on, they just millions of stickers, give $30 million on stickers, give it to your employees. Meaning, why redress the truck at a cost of millions of dollars? And he's talking about the Swift Night thing. Yeah, it could well be the case. Because it is kind of like, who really cares what it says on the trailers, except for the guys like me that laugh at Swift. So I guess the trick is you tell Night you want to pull a night trailer. You want to work for that division. There's Captain Nice Guy. CRST is still a privately held company. Yeah, I thought so, which is, so obviously the guy that manages that company is no slouch because he hasn't had to go to the stock market for investment dollars. And I don't know if you guys followed this business with Dillon Transport here this week. When they were a tanker carrier that had about 340 trucks or something like that, and they were propped up financially by a private equity firm, meaning they couldn't get money from the bank, so they went to a private equity firm, and then the equity firm dropped them. Basically, they decided it wasn't a good enough investment, and they quit financing Dillon, and Dillon went under. But here in CRST's case, he hasn't gone that route, and he's still making a profitable carrier operation run. So hats off to him. Ghost Cat, I drive a day cab for Swift. Our drop yard is a night yard, but we don't have any access to any of their facilities, not even the shop. Isn't that unusual? I wonder why they would do that. But that's, thanks, Ghost Cat. Appreciate that. So obviously they're trying to keep it separate. Interesting. Well, they'll have reasons for that. I'd love to know what they are. Trucker Herald, Maverick Transportation is a great company. Enjoyed my time with them. Trucker Herald, Maverick is, in my opinion, a mega carrier just because of their sheer size. And I can also honestly say that they are the only mega carrier that I have a high opinion of. They do stuff right over there. I like Maverick Transportation. I got nothing bad to say about them, and I've never heard anything bad about them, which for a mega carrier, that's going a ways. So yeah, good outfit as far as I'm concerned. How do I get over the fear of making curves when driving tractor trailer? Just go into the curve as slowly as you feel comfortable with. Don't ever feel like you're going into a curve at a speed at which you can't control the truck, or that you feel that something might go wrong, like it'll tip over or something like that. Just go slow into the corners, and you'll learn with time and experience. And, you'll learn the feel of the truck and the load and everything like that. But just curves, trucks generally don't go out of control and roll over on a straight stretch. They'll do it on a curve, and especially in curves in the hills. Putter away, take your time. Don't worry how many guys are blowing by you, because you can't gauge what's safe for you as compared to what everybody else is doing. And half the time they're not doing it safely anyway. Just take your time. Go slow, ease into it. Once you get the feel of the curve, you can pick it up a little if you want, or just stay slow through the whole curve, and just don't exceed your comfort level ever. Because when you're exceeding your comfort level, that's when stuff starts to go wrong. You can feel it in the seat of your pants when you're losing control of that truck. Just take it easy. Yeah, Kelly Patterson says, just take the curve slow enough to feel comfortable. And the confidence will build with time. He's exactly right. That's exactly right. Daniel Meredith, to get over the fear of driving curves is to make your turns wide enough and use your mirrors. Also good advice. Michael Mueller, you all heard about the driver that plowed full speed into the Indiana-Ohio state line scale on 74 in westbound Indiana. No, man, when did that happen? Oh my God. No, I hadn't heard about that. Hopefully nobody was killed in that deal. That's incredible. And I'm assuming it was accidental rather than deliberate. Jesus. SoCal says there's lots of great Swift jokes. Yes, sir. Michael Mueller, we were laughing at all the Swift jokes. God, there's some good ones. Stevie Wonder Institute of Driving, Trucking. Oh God. Trucker Herald, anyone looking for a good job in the ports of LA Long Beach they're hiring like crazy due to the driver shortage and increased freight. And I said that a couple of weeks ago, that the ports are going to be busy for the foreseeable future. So don't go in there and accept the lowest wage, man. You can choose your wage going into that. Michael Mueller, happened yesterday. Driver died at and the scale house is destroyed. Wow. That's tragic. I'm sorry to hear that. Trucks are like rolling freight trains when they get their momentum up. It's amazing the damage they can do and how much time it takes to stop the things. So, man. Well, I don't know the story behind how that came to be, but pretty sad stuff. Lost my train there reading about that accident. That's awful. Daniel Meredith says, I don't like driving through New York or New Jersey, the Jersey Pike. People are crazy there. Yeah. And you know what, Daniel, I got to the stage in my career where I just quit going to the Eastern Seaboard altogether, just because it got to be a scary proposition. It wasn't worth the money anybody paid. The freight rates went up in that area because they couldn't get trucks to go. I didn't care. I didn't go. I don't like the Eastern Seaboard at all. Port driver jobs in Phoenix. Duncan and Sons, $70K plus prizes. That's from Roger Penske, and he'd know that's what he does down there. But yeah, there's some serious money to be made hauling containers right now. I'm sure Roger would agree with me, but yeah, that's where the dough is, because the freight, they can't keep up to the freight. They can't keep up to it. There's ships stacked up out there in the harbors. Trucker Harold, I just got a raise 2 months ago at the ports, and now I make $120K a year with great benefits. Trucker Harold. So there's your proof right there. You can't beat that kind of money. That's great money. Way to go, man. Trucker Harold's in the dough. He's buying dinner. Oh, Michael Mueller says, I think the driver may have had medical issues. We're talking about the wreck of the scale house there. That caused a wreck. Oh, that's sad. Yeah, if he's had a heart attack or something like that, passed out and his foot's gone down. Jeez.
Adam Smith coming in with the 20 beans. Thank you very much for that, my friend. Hope you enjoyed the stream today thus far.
Thanks, Adam. Appreciate that. Animal Preach says driving through Brampton, Ontario is pretty scary, even in a car. Yes, it is. I agree with you. Toronto in general is getting to be quite scary to drive in a car. It's not just Brampton, it's all of Toronto. Daniel Ford, I watched a video of some guys driving in New York City, and the toll bridges are making $365,000 $365 million a year, but the whole city is a hellhole. Wow. $365 million, and they're obviously not putting into the city. There's New York City's one of them. I've been there. I've done that. I don't want to go back. It's just, the Cross Bronx Expressway is like the surface of the moon, and if you break down, you need a gun. Daniel Meredith, we should all get together, all of us truck drivers, and let the Lettuce King tell us stories. He keeps telling us he's coming up here, and he's going to bring his truck, and he's going to race me, but I think the truth is that he knows I'll win, and he's been ducking us. So he called me last week, I guess it was, told me what a great time he had at the truck show there in Clifford, that we should have made it, but we had nothing but rain in my part of the country, and we figured Clifford would be the same, but it wasn't, apparently. While the containers are stacked up, the companies aren't raising the rate to the owner-operator because they're getting more. We get the same rate we always have. Well, Herschel, I think I'd go in and talk to my boss there at the container place, and if he wants to keep you, he'll slide you a raise right now because they don't want to lose drivers. They're probably bluffing and hoping that nobody will want more money, but I'm telling you, now is the time to ask. Don't wait for them to volunteer it, because you just saw somebody else there making like $120K a year. March right in there and tell them you need more money. The Korean Mafia is NGL Transportation. The money isn't as good, but great people to work for. Near zero hassles, and I'm having a hard time quitting. No, Roger, if you're with a company you're happy with, that's worth a lot right there. Because, if you can work with the people and they appreciate you, give you the time off when you need it, work with you, whatever, it's hard sometimes you can't always put a dollar value on everything. Dave, I hear the Canadian truck drivers might be going on strike. Any truth to that? Trucker Harold. I hadn't heard that, Trucker Harold. I don't know if there's any truth to that or not. I'll have to do a little sniffing around, but I can't tell you. I can't tell you if there's any truth to that or not. Emerald Preach says he got to meet the Les King back at Clifford this year. Best day ever. Oh, that's good. Yeah, he's a really nice guy. He really is. He's got a heart of gold and some serious skills. Serious skills. God. Well, I guess, oh God, the time just flies by when I'm chatting with you guys, but I spent half the stream laughing at the Swift jokes. Man, there's some good ones. I'm gonna double back when we're done the stream and write down all these Swift jokes, but appreciate you all joining us today. I had a heck of a good time. I hope you did too. Anything to add there from the management side? Yes, thank you everybody that made donations today. We appreciate that. We put that towards the equipment and feeding Nick, and we're grateful for them. So thank you. Take care, you guys. Keep the rubber side down, and we'll see you on the back haul. Good night, everybody.